Podcast brought to you by Benben.
You know that thing that happens with a bathing suit when you jump into a pool? It just fills up with air like a flotation device. I would like that to happen in a midair collision on a plane with me and a woman I'm dating that I don't like anymore, so that I could float in the air as she falls to the ground. And at the moment I know I'm safe, I turn to an Asian man holding an umbrella like a parachute while filming me with his camera because I'm so amazing. I turn to camera and say, Dockers. Like a commercial for Slacks. I think that would be funny. How you doing, Blair?
That would be weird.
But wouldn't it be like interesting, but also mildly racist, but not in 1980s sense? Because like Asians in movies in the 1980s were always had cameras and no one had any problem with it. Like, or late 70s even, like Chinatown, lots of Asians with cameras in that movie. No issues. I don't know.
What is the relevance of the woman? What is the relevance of you not wanting to date her anymore?
Oh, no relevance. I just thought it would be like a nice add-on to the whole thing.
How would that be apparent?
How would that be apparent? What?
How would that be apparent in this commercial?
Oh, well, it wouldn't be, but I guess my elation that I survived and my disregard for the fact that she perished might suggest that I didn't care for her as much as she thought. Not that people watching would even know that I liked her to begin with.
So you're just jumping out of a plane?
Not jumping. Mid-air collision breaks apart so that we have to get out of our seats and like we're going to fall in the air.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it more clearly now.
I think the likelihood of a mid-air collision is higher than that of being struck by lightning. So that's good to know. Next time you're playing golf and you're trying to beat the storm and you're on the 17th tee with the lightning, you see it in the distance. It's getting closer. Between the thunder and the lightning, you know, the seconds.
Mm-hmm.
May want to get off the green. Neil deGrasse Tyson rape allegations. Such a nice, quiet, calm guy, you know, just a pleasant voice. It's funny. It's interesting.
Yeah, I read the article. I don't know, these accusations don't seem to hold much weight in my opinion.
I will say this.
And there's only one rape allegation, and it's from like when they were both graduate students.
In terms of coverage,
so a
though,
long
by
time
the media,
ago.
It's as if it's 100% true. Do you know what I mean? The coverage is as if he kills babies for a living.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been following the coverage. I just read one article.
I have some specifics for you about this,
but
which are kind of funny. In 2009, he allegedly searched a woman's dress that he met at a party because she was wearing a celestial gown that had all these planets in our solar system on it.
No. She had a tattoo, and he moved her dress to see the rest of the tattoo.
My understanding was that she had a dress of planets, and he was looking for Pluto. Because Pluto, he was one of the people that helped demote Pluto as a planet. And so he always looks for it when people wear dresses that have like, or any shirts that have like universe stuff on it.
No, it was that tattoo.
So he lifted up the woman's dress on the shoulder to see if there's Pluto there.
Yeah, I guess he moved the shoulder of her dress aside to see the full tattoo.
So he saw something, and then he's like, "Oh, what is that? Is that?" And he was like, "He wanted to."
And I guess he did it without
asking.
I guess he didn't ask for her permission to do that.
So that's such a dorky, nerdy, like not really trained in social decorum.
Yeah, that doesn't seem particularly threatening to me.
He's wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong to do, but I personally wouldn't feel threatened
by him.
That action. I would feel uncomfortable maybe and be like, wow, that guy has no sense of personal boundaries.
If it was John Stamos, would you feel better or worse?
He's really short.
So worse. Like he's like a troll, but a really handsome one. So good looking, that John Stamos. Jesse.
Also, I feel like John Stamos would like kind of know what he was doing, and
But wouldn't it be more
and
creepy?
I think it would be more creepy if John
He'd
Stamos
have to get a
did it.
step ladder, come in, get to your shoulder, look. Ooh, that's a nice Pluto, by the way.
I'm sure
band's
I'm
playing this
sure he
Friday.
wears lifts in his shoes.
What was John Stamos' name of his band in Full House? Jesse and the Rippers. Yes.
Really, is that what it was?
Yes, I think it was.
I
I think it was, which is kind of also, it's
have
very
no
rapey.
idea.
It's very rapey. It follows that he would be a creepy person to look for Pluto.
Could be a little. What?
Well, he'd be a creepy person to look for planets on people, considering he's in a band called the Rippers.
Yeah, because people go looking for planets on people all the time.
Yes, but some rapists are called the Ripper, like Jack, who
I
mutilated
think
women.
he was called Jack the Ripper because he
Mutilated women.
like
Did experiments, vivisection.
not. I mean, he did this in alleys. I mean, he
Treated
ripped
them like
open with
but surgical
like,
precision.
knives.
Surgical precision. That's why they thought it was a doctor.
Yeah, so I think the Ripper part comes from that, not from the rape part.
Neil deGrasse Tyson could be some like fantastical Hannibal Lecter type doctor that no one realizes is actually this super creep. Though with his comportment, the way was it John Harris or Thomas Harris that writes the Hannibal Lecter series. Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't have that like weirdo like creepy person thing. He has like
he seems like kind of awkward, but he seems really like kind-hearted and well-meaning.
Yeah, like
I know
he cares
he
about he believes what he says. He has conviction in everything.
Yeah, he does believe what he says, and he does stand up for the truth, or at least what he believes is the truth. And I've seen him like decimate people who try to argue with him, in exchanges on Twitter.
He has done a lot of work with kids. Remember that guy in Britain? What's his name? Tommy Savile, child molester, Britain TV guy. What was his name? I just don't see. I don't see this type. Jimmy Savile. Yeah, I don't see that. He's not a creep in that way.
No, not like Jimmy Savile.
You know who could be a creep though?
Jimmy Savile was such a creep.
Bill Nye is more Jimmy Savile than Neil deGrasse Tyson. Bill Nye is
That's
a
just because
fucking
he's
weirdo.
white. You're being a racist.
How is he more weird? Because black people be serial killers? Is this? Oh no, that's actually stereotyping because serial killers are generally white and 40 and male. So like by me suggesting that Neil deGrasse isn't, I'm actually being more open and progressive.
I was just making a joke that you're saying Bill Nye would be creepier because he's white.
No, I'm saying he is creepier. Like he pretends to be a scientist. He doesn't even have a degree in science. His whole thing's a fucking sham. It's like ultimate acting. It's really weird. Like he has like a bachelor's degree in something. He pretends to be like some sort of physicist. Neil deGrasse Tyson's legit 100% loves what he does, has been doing it forever. These allegations, the summer 2018, he may have hugged someone. This is a common saying that he makes apparently, where he says, if I hug you, I may want more, but kind of in a joking way. Anyway, he invites
he denies that he ever said anything like that.
But he says he has said stuff like that in the past, but he always means it in a joking way.
Oh.
And he said that he invited a group of people over to his house for wine and cheese. He remembers this vividly because he knows what happened afterwards. He invited people to his house for wine and cheese, including this woman. After that, they had a bunch of people over at a table. He sat away from this woman. They weren't even directly across from each other. And the party went really well. Afterwards, however, she came to his office and expressed privately she felt uncomfortable that evening because she thought as though he was trying to seduce her, even though there was a bunch of people at the table and he was conversing with everyone, just from inviting her over for cheese and wine. That's kind of weird. I think that's really weird. What does that mean? That's weird. I mean, it's just like, it's a misinterpretation. But here's the thing. She actually tendered her resignation because of that. And guess what she did? She tendered it and then they hugged. And then she left. That's what happened. Yeah.
I thought that was a different woman. I must have gotten confused in my
No. The most serious allegation is the 30-year-old rapist. They're always 30 years old. And I'm going to get to something else that happened this week that I think is more important than 30-year-old rape allegations for Me Too and women everywhere. It stems from a woman he did date briefly. But she states in her accusation she can't remember being raped or that anything happened at all. She merely assumes it did and that he did it. This is kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
There's no refutation possible. It's unfalsifiable.
Yes. She has no memory of the night.
Or
so
that
she assumes,
any evidence that he would have done
She
it.
assumes the reason she has no memory of the night is because he must have drugged her.
Not all black people are Bill Cosby. That is racist. This isn't like a common thing where black celebrities rape women with drugs. Although, in fairness, Darren Sharper did it. Bill Cosby's done it.
Lots of people.
You know what is kind of weird about black celebrities recently? Sorry, I don't mean to interject. They're dying of pneumonia at really young ages. Black people. Bernie Mac, Eddie Murphy. Well, this is what I'm wondering. If they get into like sex parties, they have sex with transsexuals, they think that it's the same thing as heterosexuality and they feel less safe.
I don't know why they would think that.
I don't know, but there's definitely something. There's been rumors about Eddie Murphy and his sexual dalliances for years, and also Eddie Murphy's brother died young, early onset cancer, or also pneumonia, something weird, or something I can't recall.
Well, I think you're more susceptible to pneumonia if you have some other life-threatening illness.
Well, if you have
like
an immune deficiency,
cancer
if you have an
AIDS
autoimmune disease, that's not. But if you have an if your immune system is suppressed severely from a disease like HIV or AIDS, oftentimes those patients die because of pneumonia.
Yeah, but I think it can be the same with people receiving cancer treatments.
Possibly. I just think it's interesting that normally people say on the death certificate they die of complications from cancer. They say like I died of pneumonia or complications from pneumonia. Is this kind of
pneumonia as a complication from cancer? I don't know what they put on this.
It's weird. Maybe I guess if you're schizophrenic and you walk in front of a bus, died from complications of thinking you're Superman. I don't know, but it's kind of weird. So I think Neil deGrasse Tyson seems like a nice guy, and I'm not worried about this at all. I am worried about the issues of unfalsifiability, where you're kind of left with this large hanging fruit. What is he supposed to do? She doesn't have evidence. She's not even stating that she does remember anything.
That accusation seems the most bullshit one of all, and it's also the most serious allegation because it's about date rape.
Don't you find that interesting that all these women are separate and yet this has been compiled and came out at the same time?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like so they're trying to get
they all release their stories to the same magazine or something. I'm wondering what that I didn't look up what that magazine is, but
the rape allegation, by the way, was on a blog site that was left there for years, recently, just left there, almost like it was trying to. Neil deGrasse Tyson insinuates that the woman might be trying to encourage more women to speak out by leaving it there, but he doesn't really understand what. He thinks something weird's going on with the way this happened, but he doesn't want to get into it because he's like, I can't. He actually even says, "Why believe me?" Which is kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, we can't. But we also can't believe the rape allegation. The other things being awkward, you even admitted you're sorry. That's not the same as touching some girl's butt and squeezing it. It's not even
he
Dustin
didn't grab her breast.
No, he's just being a nerd.
Yeah, he was just being a socially awkward
collateral damage
nerd.
From nerddom.
And he should not do that again. He should not, touch a woman and move her dress.
The conflation of unwanted sexual advances by the Me Too movement is frustrating.
But this wasn't even sexual.
No, but the guy comes up to a woman at the bar and he asks her, "Hey, what's up, baby? You want to go and get a drink?" That's inappropriate allegedly, hypothetically. But then,
That's
if a nerd invites you to
inappropriate.
wine and cheese, that's an unwanted sexual advance. The only way we know that
No, the unwanted sexual advance was when he moved her dress to see her tattoo.
No, what I'm saying is the left or the Me Too movement seems to conflate unwanted sexual advances with simply trying to ask a woman to have drinks. Before the Neil deGrasse Tyson examples, there have been people that have written in the press that are advocates of the Me Too movement that have stated, we feel like, really pressured by men at bars and restaurants that come up to us and ask us to buy drinks. We don't want that attention. But I'm like, how is the man supposed to know you don't want it until he tries? And if he stops, that's fine. What's the issue? If a guy bothers you after you say, no, I don't want to have a drink with you, or no, don't you to buy me a drink, there should be no issue whatsoever. In this Neil deGrasse Tyson issue, they've stated publicly in different periodicals about it that asking the woman to come to his place with a group of people, not just alone, for wine and cheese is an unwanted sexual advance not because of his intention, but because of her interpretation.
When I read her side of the story,
it's crazy.
When I read her side of the story, the way that she wrote it made it seem as though it was a one-on-one thing, and then when I read more about it later, it turned out that it was a party.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It's a delusion. I once met a woman who was convinced that her psychiatrist...
So, it would be really creepy to me if my boss invited me by myself to his house for a wine and cheese tasting.
But if it was with a group of
and
people...
I would say, no, I'm sorry, I can't tonight, because just thinking that I'd be alone with him would make me uncomfortable. But turns out that it was with a whole group of people, and then I would have felt perfectly comfortable attending.
This is very disturbing stuff. I really feel like we're this sense of the problem with this stuff is that it's kind of hypocritical, and you're coming into a place where the accusers are not held up to the same standard as the accused at all. Mm-hmm. And if a woman, like I was giving you the example before you went on that, I made that point, a girl that I knew was convinced that her psychiatrist was in love with her. So then her parents were concerned about that and had her see a separate psychiatrist who she then was certain was also in love with her.
That's classic. That's called transference.
She was not the issue. The police investigated one of her psychiatrists too for allegedly inappropriate conduct. I mean, I'm not saying that these things don't happen. I'm not saying that Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't do something inappropriate maybe on the side that gave this woman the feeling that she was somehow special in his eyes. But her accusations don't include any of that. So we're left with a group party for wine and cheese. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a psychopath. I think that it's weird. I wanted to move on to YouPorn banning Starbucks coffee from its offices because Starbucks announced starting in 2019 the coffee chain would actively block access to pornography sites for anyone using free Wi-Fi in their establishments, as they should, because it's a family place.
Yeah, I think it's pretty reasonable for Starbucks to make that move because not everyone entering a Starbucks wants to glance over at someone using their laptop and see pornography.
They should do it on planes. I've seen guys in planes next to me look at porn.
That is so gross.
That's worse. It's gross. It's like...
Maybe it's not worse for them.
What's worse, jacking off in a public theater or jacking off when you're at your girlfriend's parents' house for Thanksgiving?
Are they trying to jack off under the table? I don't get it. Or do they excuse themselves to the bathroom after a certain
There's a
point?
short on Instagram and probably on multiple different sites with a guy jacking off underneath his blanket on an airplane. The guy filming it, and the guy looking at him the guy's jacking off, looking at the guy filming, and catches him come on, man. You're not being cool. What? Who's in the wrong? So obvious, too.
You're not being cool.
By the way, his dick looks so small, or he was intentionally trying to make it like less so, because it was like little.
Well, I'm sure he wanted it to look as least obvious.
So he's doing like micro, like high frequency, but slow strokes, like really short, like shallow. Like I'm just doing the tip. So it's like, but it's like that's even worse, man, because that's just creepy.
To look like you're scratching an itch.
For what? 7 minutes? It's fucking weird. I think the YouPorn thing's hilarious and gives them good publicity. But I think...
Yeah, I think it was a funny move on their part.
There's a guy that was at the... there's a video I saw. A guy's at a public library. And I guess that he's looking at porn all the time and someone decides to do something about it. The guy films him, comes up to him like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, hello," and pretends like it's no big deal. Hello. Oh, good to see you, man. Good to see you.
So, how is he jacking off? Like, is he...
Can I do Russell Brand watching porn at a library? Let me see if I can do it. Hold on. Oh, I'm just looking at porn. How are you doing? Yes. Oh, fantastic. I haven't done it in a while. I'll work on it.
Yeah, I think you needed to work on what exactly it was you wanted to say.
Yeah, I should have written it out. This is off the
instead
cuff.
you just blurted
Russell.
out a bunch of different words.
Yeah. I've actually want to ask British people what they make of my fake British accents. Like, they're all like kind of, you can't place them. But I've had British people at times, I think I'm on point, ask me, "Oh, where are you from, mate?" Like, they're curious, "Oh, you must be from somewhere in the Isles," but they can't place me.
Or they might be trying to catch you.
No, I don't think British people would think that I'm like
see.
intentionally doing it. I have told British people that I care, like I like and I respect that. By the way, I have this thing where if I am around you enough, I'm gonna start talking like you, and I'm not making fun of you. I just pick it up.
I mean, that's normal, but for a whole accent.
Jordan Belfort's father, this is a true story, the Wolf of Wall Street, would answer the phone and talk at restaurants randomly and change his voice into a British accent. I do that. I do that. It's not pretentious. I do it with anyone. It's not to sound like cool. I randomly do it. I don't know why.
I think it's a subconscious thing.
Maybe I'm insecure and it makes me feel like, oh, if I do this, I don't have to be myself because I don't like myself.
And it's subtle. The accent that you put on.
Absolutely, it's very subtle.
No, yes. It's not that powerful. Like when
Are you sure? When was the last time I did? I should check my schedule. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Like when you're at restaurants or whatever and you suddenly have an accent.
Bollocks.
It's not that obvious.
Yeah.
But I definitely pick up on it because I hear you talk normally all the time and you go back to talking normally to me after the waiter has left.
That's funny. I know I've done things where I've thrown people and they're like, "You have this accent that kind of goes in and out." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been here for a long time. I don't really elaborate." That's what I hear people say about accents. So yeah, I've lost some of it. The woman on Frasier did a British accent, like towards the end of the season, last few seasons, she lost some of her accent. So I don't know.
Well, they initially had her like exaggerate an accent because I don't think she's from the part of England where her character is from, so she's putting on an accent, I think. But anyway,
I find a different British accent.
Yeah,
that's interesting. They just preferred it.
Maybe she's Cockney. It was because of her character. But what I find interesting is that I am often told that I have an accent.
I don't hear that. That's definitely don't hear that.
Often.
What is it?
Usually men.
Like
hardly ever women. But of course, I mostly talk to men. So.
Yeah. What accent?
Oh, they can never place it.
Has anyone ever guessed?
No.
Because the guess would be very telling. Like, oh, that sounds Iranian.
Like, I think that maybe they're just saying it to maybe...
Do you know Farsi?
Flatter me in some way, but I'm not sure.
In this day and age, that you're an immigrant? Ew, I'm just kidding.
No, by saying I have an accent.
No, I know, which implies you're an immigrant. It's a joke. Just kidding.
I
Immigrants are
guess,
sexy,
but I could be...
but not illegal ones. I'm just kidding. They're sexy too. It's a hint of danger.
Well,
It's an aphrodisiac.
they never believe that...
Unless you're 5'5" Mexican. That's not really sexy. I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
They often don't believe that I'm born in America.
Do you ever like not use articles?
What do you mean?
Like, or use articles? You know how like people from other countries use articles incorrectly? It's the most common common misuse of the English language. Like, I'm from the America now, or like
no, I don't do that.
That would be funny if you did.
No,
do it
I just talk
on purpose to fuck with
normally.
them.
I just talk normally the way that I'm talking to you, and maybe with a little sexier or more flirtatious tone of voice. But they never believe that I'm from America, and but they can never quite guess where I'm from or where the accent is from.
Do you think they're saying
And
that
I have
because
to-
they want to seem insightful? Like they're just basically like, you're probably not from here, so that's gonna make me look worldly, and you're gonna think I'm not just some simple American asshole.
Or they're clearly aware that I am American, but they think that I'll be flattered if they think that I am from some exotic place.
The fact that they don't say a specific place leads them to be very poor chess players because they're not thinking the next move ahead, because they're not going to be able to pinpoint. They're just going to have one more guess.
But it's happened so many times,
Not the brightest bulb in the
over
cannon,
the
but,
past 5 years, that I have to think that it's not just a move. I have to think that they actually think that I have an accent.
Do you know what the cooler move is? To say something like, "Are you from Jersey?" You said that to like put you down, but in a way that's like ignorant. That would be funny. 'Cause
Yeah,
you'd
no,
have to defend yourself.
I don't believe in negging.
Negging, yes.
Negging is
but
disgusting.
it's a funny negging way. It's funny. It's not. It's lighthearted, and it might actually work in that regard. I think that's funny.
No, it would not work.
It's like, are you from Delaware? That accent. Yeah.
People from Delaware have an accent. I barely remember
It
Delaware
would be
exists.
so light. I mean, maybe there is a Delaware accent that's like kind of a mix between New York and something else. About the Me Too movement and like things that people should think more closely about when it comes to women's rights and the empowerment of women. The Egyptian actress Rania Youssef going on trial in Egypt on January 12th for wearing a dress to an event in Cairo that she is accused of as committing an indecent act or indecent debauchery is the specific statute. Did not meet the societal values, traditions, and morals, and therefore undermine the reputation of the festival and the reputation of Egyptian women in particular, Mr. Sabri told AFP. He's one of the people prosecuting her. She even concedes that she may have gone too far. Last year, an Egyptian court jailed singer Shama Ahmed for 2 years, later reduced to a year for appearing in a music video in her underwear while suggestively eating a banana. I'd like to see that video. Meanwhile, in January, prosecutors detained another singer, Lala Amir, after her music video showing her dancing and making suggestive gestures sparked controversy. I think it's interesting that the Me Too movement and the people that push that stuff in the United States do not talk about stuff like this because it seems more important.
Well, I mean, someone has been talking about it. It's in our news.
Sort of. It's like it's not being pushed like the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing.
No, it's
and I
not.
have to think that it's a cannibalistic.
Cannibalistic?
Yeah. So when you have two.
So what is eating what?
I'm about to say. When you have two progressive ideals, like equal rights for X and Y, two separate groups, but if those conflict, for example, Muslim culture causing women to be jailed based on wearing, empowering sexual or sexually provocative clothing they feel comfortable and that makes them feel sexy and good about themselves. This becomes a critique of Muslim
this
culture.
Clashes with, the culture aspect clashes with the Me Too movement.
Well, because it's the left perpetuates the Me Too movement and invests in it, and they don't want to get involved with saying, what's your critique of the treatment of women and Muslim society. They'll be like, oh, we're not going to get into that. I feel like that's why this isn't as popular, and it's messed up.
Yeah. I looked at the dress, and
It was provocative.
But by Western standards, it wasn't that provocative.
It was like, I guess I'm old. I don't watch red carpet events.
It wasn't
the J-Lo green dress. It was kind of like that. That's sexy, like kind of provocative.
Yeah, I mean, the parts that were sheer were not too sheer. She was wearing a pretty full coverage bodysuit underneath the dress. So basically, you just saw her legs. It was as if she was wearing a one-piece bathing suit and sort of a semi-sheer dress over it through which you could see her legs.
Can I make one more point to mine about like the hypocritical nature of this being less popular?
No.
Well, the journalist Khashoggi, remember him, that was killed in the Turkish embassy or the Saudi consulate or the Turkish consulate?
I remember him.
Saudi consulate in Turkey. This is a huge story, and Trump is criticized for not doing more to criticize the Prince Mohammed Salman. And yet there are beheadings every day in Saudi Arabia, and gays are thrown off rooftops. And that's been going on for administrations after administrations after administrations. It's just interesting how, he's not, there's a war on journalists and Trump isn't doing anything. Look at this. It seems like kind of naive considering like this is going on, like serious stuff. Where are the gay right advocates for those people in Saudi Arabia? It's very hypocritical. That's all that I want to say about it. But going back to this woman, the fact that she even concedes that she went too far could just be her way of feigning contempt for herself to protect herself for the trial. It could also be that she actually believes she went too far, and that's a case of, I'm not saying Stockholm syndrome, but it's delusion in one sense, but in another aspect, it's moral relativism. She might actually feel she did do something wrong, and that's just that's an interesting conceit of societal differences. Like the Sinhalese tribe that killed that man. From their perspective, they did nothing wrong. He was invading their territory.
Sentinelese?
Huh?
Sentinelese.
Sentinelese. Thank you. Yes. It's kind of a it's a conflict. Absolutely. It's just the problem when we try to pick and choose cases of impropriety and violations of human dignity. And then we don't apply those same standards to other events.
What about that dress Rose McGowan wore to some red carpet
Can't really criticize her.
Why?
She's a victim. Oh God, I see it. That's awful.
I know.
She wore it with Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
So. Awful. Like. I don't care if you call me sexist. It just doesn't look good.
The thong in the back is not a good view.
Everything about that, she's not sexy.
But at the time, people were like, "Oh my God, it's so hot." So, is that dress more or less?
The beautiful people.
Is that dress more or less revealing than the dress worn by Rania Youssef?
Well, the problem is the institution of criminalizing women based on what they're wearing is violations of cultural norms in Muslim nations. That should be the issue, and that should be what's being taken upon. Not look at what Rose McGowan did in L.A. at some fucking award show with some bizarre guy that may or may not have removed his bottom rib.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring up the horror show that was that dress.
More power to her. She has every right to do it, and she feels sexy in it. I don't find her attractive, but I think it's a poor choice. But
I think she was very attractive before that car accident.
Well, I see you say that now. I sound like an asshole. Maybe she was. I don't know.
Well, this was before the car accident.
Oh, then no, she wasn't. I don't care for the I don't care for her story either about Harvey Weinstein, because allegedly she took money and then criticized him after the fact. It's just kind of a bizarre story.
I don't know, but anyway.
Going to the Supreme Court of Canada ruled Vice reporter Ben McCook must hand over to police material he gathered for a story about an alleged ISIS member.
I think in the U.S. they have to do that, but I don't know about in Canada.
No, well, this is in Canada. This Canada has some bizarre laws, like the H-85 rule, I think it was called, that gives children that believe they should be able to, that want to transition, the right to like excommunicate their parents and do it without their permission.
Excommunicate them from their church?
Basically make the decision without their parents having any way to stop them, which is kind of disconcerting.
I'm not sure if excommunicate is the right word there.
Well, they can remove their parental rights for the very reason of transitioning, which is like a bit disconcerting.
Like adjust for that?
Yes.
Do they retain their parental rights for every other aspect of the child's life?
At that point, as a parent, to be completely helpless in that regard, I would have a hard time caring. But yeah, probably. It's disconcerting though.
Otherwise, they would just be like legally emancipated from their parents.
This is the same country with the forced speech requirements regarding pronouns that Jordan Peterson became famous for.
Oh my God.
Compelled speech laws, which would result in a fine, but ultimately, if you didn't pay the fine, you might have to go to jail. There's all these hypotheticals, and it's good for him for speaking up on it. Respecting people of different
I don't want to go to
identities as well.
Canada.
Respecting people of different self-identifications is fine, when you involve legislation of children and forced. I guess you're basically forcing parents to make decisions, or to concede to the government itself the right of their child to do something that could easily be a facade that's just, or a fad, or some sort of thing that they'll grow out of, but they'll make a permanent situation.
What age does this? I mean, like,
I don't think there is one.
Is there a 6-year-old?
Minors.
So 6-year-olds deciding that they want to change. Wow.
And the argument.
I used to want to go to Montreal, but I don't know. I don't know if I can go to.
Like that.
I don't know if I can go to Canada anymore.
But this issue reminds me of the FISA court in the United States, where you can be accused of being a terrorist, and basically all your civil liberties and right to privacy are thrown out the window. All before terrorist investigations. But if you're found out not to have been involved in a terrorist plot, or you were involved, my best friend is the terrorist allegedly, but then they find out that I have a gigantic marijuana ring. Yes, they find that out, but they don't care because that's not prosecutable. Statute of limitations on giant penises out the window. So they find out that I have a grow house for marijuana. Something completely unrelated to terrorism, and I'm not even the original target of their scope and their investigation. They get warrants. They send all this information to the DEA in whatever jurisdiction that I live in, and then they create probable cause and violate my Fifth Amendment rights because it doesn't come nascently. They had information they should never have had about me, and they'll sit by my house with. They'll look at my energy meter first. That's the first thing they do to get you. They see how much energy you're using for the lights for the plants. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have necessarily found out about that if it weren't for my friend who was allegedly involved. That should not be allowed. That's really interesting, I think. Because they could basically say, well, if we really want to violate someone, we can just accuse them of being a terrorist and then find out all this private information about them. And we can just argue, oops, we made a mistake. That's not cool.
I mean, I think they have to have some basis for making an accusation
it's
like
very,
that.
The latitude the court gives them. There's no one defending the client. Remember, there's no lawyer for the client. It's just a judge and the government. That's it. It's very, very the wide latitude.
I think that there would be some investigative party that would.
Let me give you this. If
like the police or something that would need, permission from a judge, I guess.
If Paul Manafort, if the Mueller investigation, if Mueller wasn't appointed as special counsel, and the U.S. government or some entity really wanted to get Manafort, they would accuse him of terrorist activities and treason against the United States. And then they would get a subpoena from FISA court to tap his phone to get all this shit. And then they would try to prosecute him that way by creating evidence or the right to violate his due process to get all this information they wouldn't have had. That's the other thing, just on a brief notion about Mueller. 90% of all the information that he's using to prosecute people is based on false statements. The statements are not illegal. It's just that they lied. If you were to use what they said and said, is that criminal? It isn't. The only other stuff is like the 10% is relating to Michael Cohen, lying about his taxes and getting fraudulent loans, and then Manafort allegedly having a bank and avoiding his taxes in Cyprus. This stuff has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's really interesting that that's what you got. That these people are avoiding going to jail for shit they did before, and it's like that's it. It's about 10% of his prosecutions are that. The rest are just, oh, you lied to us. Well, we're going to charge you. They would never have gone to jail otherwise. The last thing that I want to talk about, and this is really, I think this is important. This is probably the most important thing that we're going to talk about because of my presence on Twitter and everyone else's. Twitter banning Megan Murphy.
I wrote a tweet today or yesterday.
Let's discuss that after this. How about that? Twitter banning Megan Murphy, who runs Feminist Current, for tweeting, "Men aren't women." That's what she tweeted. Okay. Mm-hmm. And former Iraqi war veteran Jesse Kelly, for they banned him for everything, but it doesn't really say anything that provocative. Like that, not even as bad as "men aren't women." It's interesting. And they said in their email, "You are permanently banned, and you can't appeal it for repeated rules violations. Ergo, you violated it a bunch of times. We didn't tell you were about to be banned, and we did it anyway." So, like, internally. Kelly, 37, later alleged that Twitter was being hypocritical for banning him from the platform, but allowing Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan to stay despite repeatedly making anti-Semitic remarks, including calling Jews termites. And I quote another statement, "thoroughly and completely unmasking the satanic Jew in the synagogue of Satan." You can't get banned for Twitter from that? But you can get banned for Twitter for saying men aren't women? Is this not political? No, this is what gets interesting.
I don't know. I think Jews are termites is hate speech.
I don't even want to get into that. Like, I think people have the right to say everything, but at the same time, I think Twitter is a private company and they can ban who they want. However,
I don't think saying women are not men or men are not women is hate speech.
I think
that's like a biological truth.
It depends on who you talk to about that one. But let me say this: the Communications Decency Act, language of 47 U.S. Code 230, exempts social media companies from liability as publishers because they purportedly offer a forum for true diversity of public discourse. But if you're blocking a certain view, it's not a diversity of public discourse, is it? It looks very political if you ban someone for saying men aren't women. That seems like you're banning them for transphobia, which is a political hot topic, not so much transgenderism, but the ideas behind the reasons for transgenders being X or Y. No pun intended. Like the Vancouver Dyke March, where women, feminists in the crowd, were being wailed by large transsexuals, I'm going to say men, big, like very masculine-looking transsexuals, accusing them of being TERFs, trans-exclusionary radical feminists, just because they had signs that were pro-women, not because they were saying anything about transsexuals. They used XX chromosomes in a picture of a uterus.
It was a march for women.
For women, nothing. And they were using. They had signs that had a uterus on it, like empowerment of women, and then XX is in 2 chromosomes, also, not related to transsexuals.
Women, it wasn't necessarily exclusionary of transsexuals.
The transsexual thing biologically is really confusing, just from a hereditary point of view. If a transsexual has sex with a woman, a transsexual man to woman, has sex with a woman, what chromosomal patterns of transference are existing? Like, what happens with recessive gene traits, vertical and horizontal inheritance? Like, how does that work with a transsexual parent? Like, it's ridiculous not to concede that the chromosomes of the original parent matter. It's absolutely ridiculous. The original biological determining factor. Yes. That, like, these things are so stupid. Or what's the rule that they're trying to make illegal to you? It's illegal on Twitter, by the way, to do this. You cannot call a transsexual by their dead name. What is it called? Yeah,
their dead name, which is the name that they were given at birth.
No, but what's the term? They have a term for it.
It's dead name.
Dead name, really?
Yeah, it is.
It's that simple. Twitter's,
which sounds so morbid. Like, could you get more emo?
Twitter staff is beginning to act like editors more than technological facilitators. They run the risk of losing the legal protection of neutrality. They face the same risk that newspapers and traditional media companies take when they publish reader-submitted material. Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Yes. I actually don't think the Communications Decency Act should even exist. I think Twitter should just be allowed to be ridiculous as it is and ban who they want, and not be confused as some sort of public utility like a public access network. They need to be ridiculed and allow their absurd, hypocritical like standards to exist, so that someone like Peter Thiel or someone more balanced or more moderate comes in and says, here's some tech for something else. I mean, we got to stop pretending
Twitter
that Facebook is a public
that
utility. It's not.
Allows you to publish tweets with very graphic pornography, and yet
prostitutes and porn stars. Absolutely, it's ridiculous.
And
that should be offensive. Catherine McKinnon and Andrea Dworkin tried to block pornography. Because they said it was suppressing women's rights to empowerment of speech. That was happening in like the 80s or 70s. How is this not like a theme? Like, oh, you can't post a picture of your tits. That men are making you do that, and it's suppressing women's voices. I just
posted a picture of my tits the other day.
Your tits are absolutely lovely. There are women that, like, there are people that don't agree with this. The frustrating thing is that the left is now dealing with feminists and feminists that are pro-trans and feminists that are like to talk about objective things about biology that are like considered TERFs because they're trans exclusionary, because they're just talking what they believe to be conflicts. Like, I was in a bicycle race and I came in third place because a 6'5" transgender man won, and I think that's kind of unfair. And like, you're being
a transgender woman.
I don't know how it is. Transgender man. That means it was a woman before. He, she. I don't know. I'm so confused.
You say transgender woman when they were a man before.
Transgender woman when they were a man before. I got it. Okay, that's fair.
That was really confusing to me at first as well.
I'd rather just say that they were before.
Yeah. That was easier for my mind. But no, you say what they are after.
There was an article that kind of irked me that was in the New York Times.
You said this was the last topic.
No, it is. Last topic. I know you have to go, but hold on. This is really important. Okay. I read this strange... Because this person in the New York Times was making a statement that was supposed to be a generality of how we should view transgenderism and transgender rights. But her perspective was very dark and depressive. And it kind of worried me. It was this woman...
Worried you? How?
She says the panacea, the treatment for transsexualism is the identification and diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Mm-hmm. Then your diagnosis is transgender. Then you're given the option of hormone therapy and possibly later sexual reassignment surgery. Mm-hmm. This woman wrote, and this is the article in her opinion piece, "My new vagina won't make me happy, and it shouldn't have to." She acts she explains that the sexual reassignment surgery does not have to actually make her feel better at all. It can actually make her feel worse, but it's her right to do so.
Yes.
It is her right, but if my criticism is the standard of care should be a higher threshold than just, well, we are going to do this because we don't know what else to do, and it may not make you feel better. That's not really a good standard of care.
I think that therapy needs to be a very important part of this process.
Considering the suicide rates are at 40 to 1 different from the general population.
Because a new vagina won't make you happy, just the way money won't make you happy, or getting a new pony won't make you happy.
But
just
like,
if
getting a new heart, if you need heart surgery, will that make you happy? Like,
it'll make you live.
Getting gastric bypass surgery, if you want to be skinny, will that make you happy?
It can
works.
provide it can provide sort of a temporary happiness, but it does not address the deeper issues that are making you unhappy.
And transgender people always advocate that it's not a superficial thing. It's a deep internal conflict. But yet they were so adamant about changing their external appearance.
Yeah, if you think that it's all going to be fixed by fixing the superficial, you're wrong. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sure, serious psychotherapy that has to be done in order to be happy. Like, when I'm upset, I could name, a bunch of things that I think would make me happy, and sure, they would relieve my mood for a short period of time, but then underneath it all, there would still be an undercurrent of unhappiness. And once I became bored with these few things I acquired to alleviate my unhappiness, it would return in full force. And so no, just getting a new car or a new vagina or winning the lottery does not necessarily make you happy.
Yeah, but this is the treatment to give the patient what they want. It's my question is, how do we help, for example, the transabled? If a patient feels they were meant to be born with one leg, for example, do I aid in their amputation? And if they're not happy about it after they're done, I'll be like, well, that's just the treatment.
Well, I am of the belief that people who are transabled suffer from a neurological disorder where...
What about transgender people? Is there any similarity in your mind?
Yes, I think there is a similarity.
So how come one's legitimate and one's considered not supported by anyone?
One has more research.
You think
that would be
reason?
Transgenderism there, and it's a more complicated topic because it involves gender and sexual identity, whereas transableism does not.
Do you think that's the reason why it's not adopted by the LGBTQ community?
What, transableism?
It has nothing to do with sex.
Yeah.
And so they don't support it at all. They don't even talk about it. But shouldn't they? Wouldn't it be nice to be considerate of a group of people that really believe this?
They probably think that they're just as wacko as everybody else does.
Would it surprise you if the regret or the what would be the right word? The numbers for transabled people that end up intentionally paralyzing themselves or blinding themselves, their happiness.
I haven't done much research into their satisfaction post.
It's a much higher satisfaction rate in proportion to transgender people.
So maybe they are completely different issues. I don't know.
We're also talking about 99.98% of people are binary in terms of sexuality. 99.98%. And transgender people are trying to make generalities based on 0.02% of the population.
And gender fluidity.
They also try to conflate Klinefelter syndrome and hermaphrodism with...
What?
They try to say those are the same thing as transgender.
No, it's not.
Someone born with a third eye doesn't imply that third eye people are, that's normal.
Yeah.
It's a genetic malformation or a mutation. The last thing that I wanted to say was it 97% of straight and gay children that exhibit signs of gender dysphoria grow out of it? How do they not consider that interesting? And how is it not homophobic to say when a child is transgender or exhibits gender dysphoria that they must be transgendered? How do you know they're not gay? And what's the science? You said research before. I know you don't know, but what is the science behind determining that, or the psychological children say, like, I wanted to be I don't know. I wanted to live in the ranch and be a cowboy at one point. I mean,
I wanted to be a ballerina and a farmer.
And a ballerina farmer.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, I wanted to be a farmer because it was the closest thing I could associate with horses.
Uh-huh.
Really, I wanted to be an equestrian, but when I was 5, I didn't know the word for that.
Do you think you would be in a situation on a farm?
I also wanted to be the Little Mermaid. That's actually written down.
If we combined all of them, could it be like a Footloose fantasy where like a girl that wanted to be a ballerina that rides horses was in a town that banned ballerinas that ride horses? And you guys all got together and kind of like did it anyway, and they rebelled, and they're like, look how good we are, and their horses doing ballerina like I can't think of a ballerina term at the moment, but yes, it's nice.
In the circus, there are performers of women who stand on the backs of horses as they're walking around, and they do all of these flips and tricks and twirl batons.
I could see
and shit.
that be one of your arguments with the town folk in the movie. There are people in the circus that do this.
There's obviously an appropriate term for it. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Blair, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think we'll stop there. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.